What is up, everybody, and welcome back to From the Interns. We're here with episode 8 after the Ole Miss game, 43-35 win over Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. One of the best atmospheres in the fourth quarter that I've ever experienced in Sanford Stadium. Just the energy, it felt louder than any other game we've had this season, at least in Sanford. Obviously Neyland and those places are going to bring some noise, but it was just huge testament to the fans. Listening to Kirby, asking everyone to bring that energy. Striping Sanford was pretty cool. It's just a huge win to keep the streak alive of Ole Miss not defeating Georgia in Athens. I think that makes it 30 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it's another heart attack game, right? You got, defense all over the place, nobody really making any stops on both sides. And, I mean, really, my initial thoughts after the game was it just shows that Georgia can play in any kind of game. I mean, you look at Auburn, it's a defensive battle. Offense isn't doing a lot. Georgia finds a way to win. This week, you got teams that are scoring all over the place. Defenses aren't making stops. Georgia finds a way to win. And, yeah, I mean, Georgia, I don't really know who won the coin toss, if you knew, but Georgia took the ball and went down, got some points. Maybe could have been a touchdown, but the drive kind of stalled out. But, it's just good to see Georgia get on the board first. And, I mean, the defense just didn't really do well at all. I mean, just to be completely honest, they did well in the second half later on in the game. But, I mean, touchdowns on the first few drives for Ole Miss, that's just not really something you want to see. And it's frustrating at the start, but if you really think about it, that's probably one of the better offenses in the country and definitely one of the better teams that Georgia's going to see throughout the season, no matter how far they make it in the playoff offensively. So, it is frustrating, but then again, it shows that Georgia can play in any kind of game and the offense can show up when it needs to, and they've got the playmakers to do it. I mean, unfortunate for Colby Young probably being out for the rest of the season, but I mean, yeah, it's just Georgia, they are always going to find a way to do it somehow, some way, and I think Kirby said after the game we're hard to kill or something like that, so just goes to show that Georgia's never out of it, they're never dead, and they're just always going to find a way, it seems like, this year, so.
Yeah, it's the cardiac dogs is how it's been feeling. It's a heart stopper every single time. Every time you lose a little bit of hope, then gain some hope, and then Georgia somehow, other than against Bama, gets it done. Like you said, this is one of the best offenses in the country. It's one of the best coached offenses in the country. Lane Kiffin is incredible. That one screenplay at the start of the second half, you could see him. He pretty much called the route and saw that it was man, one guy to beat, and they take it 75 yards for a touchdown.
Great audible there, too. I think I saw a clip of Lane. The way he communicates with quarterbacks is incredible. I think he did some kind of head tap or something, let him know he was in man coverage, and he was gone. But yeah.
And that was a big thing Kirby was talking about. The team was playing man. There were a ton of defensive PIs, it felt like. Mm-hmm. But that was something he talked about, that's going to happen when you're playing in man. And not to say anything, but I mean, I think some of those calls were a little bit, I think it was physical both ways, and that can go either way. But at the end of the day, when you're playing man, you can't give up these huge explosive plays, and other than the 75-yard touchdown, Georgia did a lot better of containing those deep ball, big momentum swing plays. It was sort of just a chop. Ole Miss was able to get substantial yardage each time, but nothing crazy other than that one play. And clearly, Georgia scores on every single drive at least a field goal or a touchdown until the knee, and Ole Miss, I want to say, scored a touchdown on every single drive until about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter when they punted for the first time.
On their first 5 drives, yeah.
And so it was just an absolute shootout, which, once again, this is sort of the identity, like Matthew was saying, of this Georgia team, is they're going to do what it takes to win. You've got to knock this team out. You can't really just go for we're going to lead the whole game by a score, maybe 2 scores. You've really got to put this team away, or else they're going to find a way to win. It's been evident. And, I mean, just Gunnar Stockton.
Yep.
He had himself, maybe, obviously don't want to get too ahead of myself, but he had himself one of those games where you look at him and think that he is one of those top quarterbacks in the country. And 348 all-purpose yards, over 50 of those were rushing yards, 5 total touchdowns, 3 of which were to Lawson Lucky. He had his biggest game of the season, and it was interesting. I looked at his stats as a whole on the season, and I mean, he pretty much had, I want to say, 30 or 40 yards before this game.
Yeah.
Came out of it with over 40 yards in this game alone and 3 touchdowns. So that was really cool to see. He had one big sideline catch as well, in addition to the touchdowns. Oscar Delp was getting fed the ball. It was good to see the tight ends getting worked in, especially with the loss of Colby Young, because that's something that, has been Georgia's identity. And that broken leg play really does just stink for Georgia's offense. And he's been such an impactful player. He will, I think, continue to be a very impactful leader within the team. He was already posting on Snapchat. I saw after the game, he said, "Stop sending me all this sad stuff." I'll paraphrase, all this sad stuff, because the Dawgs won and I'm alive. So I think that just absolutely, can fire up a team. To the fact that he might be done, his career at Georgia might be done, but he's going to be here for those guys and continue to contribute in any way he can.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on some of the other players getting involved. I wrote in my piece in Bulldog Illustrated that there's 2 guys that I wanted to shout out after the game, and it was Mike Bobo and Dylan Bell. First off, Mike Bobo, if you still have criticisms over the way that he does things, I really don't know what else to tell you. I mean, Georgia's they just explode, every other game, and there's still people that are complaining. I just don't really know what else you'd want to see out of the way that Georgia played against Ole Miss. I mean, if Georgia needs to get into a shootout game, they can do it. Mike Bobo has the tools that are needed to do what he needs to do for Kirby and his team and the staff to just get the job done. And then as for Dylan Bell, I mean, he didn't really light up the stats, but that catch in the fourth quarter on 2nd and 12 was huge. I mean, that might be one of the better catches he's had during his time at Georgia. But, I mean, that guy's gotten a lot of hate. I've heard a lot of people say, "Why is he on the team? He's not good. He doesn't get involved, all this stuff." But he's versatile. He can run the ball. He can catch it. He can do all these different things. And, I mean, yeah, he's one of those guys who's been at Georgia forever. He stuck through, didn't go through the transfer, all that stuff, and he loves being a Georgia player. So it just shows that, if you just stick to the process and you develop trust with your teammates, that you can become a valuable piece of the offense whenever you need to be. So I thought those are 2 guys that, looking at it broadly, need to get a little bit more credit than what they're getting. So
yeah, I think it's interesting to see how this week is where I've seen people start to publicly sort of endorse Mike Bobo, and it's something that it's just another thing that fans continue to do, is just turn whatever way things are going. Like if Georgia scores 17 points in a game and wins, they're gonna say fire Bobo, but Georgia scores 43 points in a shootout and they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's incredible." I think it's something that you need to find that consistency. But like you said, that Dylan Bell catch, that's one of the moments where you look back on it and said that secured this game for Georgia in a way. And I noticed there, I don't remember the exact play, but when Ole Miss had a 9-point lead and Georgia's going for the stop, and there's about one play where you're thinking, okay, if Georgia doesn't get this game is probably over. And about the whole game, there was never a lack of confidence from, I felt like, the sideline, the fans, or the players in any way. And that was the one moment where you get that stop and the crowd just exploded. And that place, like I said again, was just rocking. Definitely had an impact there late. Georgia was able to finally get some pressure there late as well. Tipped the ball. Dalen Everett got a pass breakup there late, and really just sort of flustered Ole Miss's offense there. And once again, this is something that you're going to have to see a better defensive performance down the stretch. Yeah. But when you scrape away from games like this in the SEC, it's always a win. So
yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things. It's like when Georgia wins, everybody, all is good in the world, but you have to have a little bit of concern with maybe a little bit of how Georgia's defense looked. But then again, you say that and you look at the Auburn game and it was pretty solid. So I don't know. Maybe it's just they're just going to play to their competition and they're just going to, they're just going to show up and you're not really going to know what to expect. But also, there were multiple people in the stands at the game that were saying, I'm not worried till, the whole game because we're just going to go win in the fourth quarter. So it's just kind of funny how Georgia trails a whole game, and then it's just you look at the scoreboard and all of a sudden they're winning. Somehow, some way, they just lock in on defense out of nowhere and just immediately start getting stops. But also, I mean, what were you
I was just going to say, I think one more thing that stood out that was very just either not reported, Kirby kept it very much on the down low, was the fact that he said Gunnar Stockton didn't even practice Monday or Tuesday because of injuries
crazy.
he was dealing with his oblique from taking shots in the Auburn game. And we talked about that last week. That dude was getting lit up in that Auburn
every
game.
throw.
He got hit right in the chest, drilled to the ground a few times, with the roughing the passer and everything. He is tough as nails, and the fact that he didn't even practice Monday and Tuesday, came out there and just delivered one of the best, I would argue his best performance at Georgia.
Yes, easy.
Is just a testament to him again and his sort of, character and, just representing the Georgia culture, I guess, and the Kirby Smart culture. But
yeah, I mean, you said best performance of his career at Georgia. I'd say that might be one of the better performances we've seen out of a Georgia quarterback in a while. I mean, Georgia's had good quarterbacks in the past, but if we're being completely honest, it's kind of been a while since Georgia's seen true, really elite quarterback play. And that was a pretty strong showing, if you're asking me, from Gunnar. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Stetson, though.
Yeah, well, Stetson, yeah, I mean, that's, but like, I mean, other than him, it's been a while. I mean, you look back in the 2010s. I was thinking a little bit deeper back in that.
Yeah.
But like, it's just you're not really haven't seen that in the past, broad scheme of things. So it's good to finally see someone. I mean, Beck had his good days, and obviously Stetson. So I guess that point kind of is out the window. But if you just look at broadly, I do think that's still valid. Anyways. But also, one last thing about Ole Miss in terms of Kiffin and stuff, I mean, you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, they had their game plan. They came in as huge underdogs. Everybody on game days giving Georgia all this hype. And they came out there and they hit Georgia straight in the mouth from the start. And, I mean, that's something I think this Ole Miss team is extremely good. They're going to make the playoff. Lane Kiffin is going to be dangerous in that playoff. And I think if Georgia and Ole Miss play again, it's going to be one of those situations where it's hard to beat the same team twice. And, Georgia's going to have to play better than they did this time because if the defense does what they did again, I think Ole Miss might make some adjustments on their defensive end where they don't let Georgia score that many points possibly. So it's definitely something that could come up down the road if they face again. But, that's just all in how the bracket lines up. So
it's been talked about for a while, but I think the relationship between Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin is pretty cool. Just seeing before the game them talking, after the game they met up and talked for a little bit. Obviously they met on the 50 after the game as well, but they met outside of that, just beneath the stadium, sort of behind the scenes. Kirby joked in his press conference that Lane, offered to give him some hot yoga tickets. And they've just always clapped back at each other in a very friendly way and in a way that's very entertaining, I think, for fans, and I'm sure they love it as well. I think it's just what he's been able to do at Ole Miss has made him a very hot commodity in college football. And it's funny, obviously now Florida has fired Billy Napier, and Florida fans, I think, are all in on Lane Kiffin. And I don't know if he is going to leave that job because of what he's built there. He's built this brand. They obviously have enough money to recruit players. Not saying it's all money, but he's built the brand as well, the culture there, and they've been winning. So it's a question of why would he leave one program he's got in the top 10 for a Florida team that obviously Florida is one of the best jobs in college football. It's in terms of geographically, brand, like
it's a blue blood football.
It's a
program.
It's a blue blood. And so obviously that's one of the top programs you want to go to as a coach, but I just don't see if Lane Kiffin leaves this team.
I mean, he's been getting the Florida job every year for the last, I don't even know how many years. It's like every year it's like they're about to hire Lane Kiffin, and then that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
but
don't worry, Bama too. Who's going to get that one?
Yeah,
too.
he's going to Bama. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Florida. I mean, that kind of leads us into a little bit across.
Let me real quick just hit the pizza performance of the week.
Right, forgot about that.
So this week's pizza performance of the week, it's one that, you know, it resonates very strongly with me. Pizza performance of the week is going to be a supreme pizza with no crust except for on one slice. You're dealing with one of the best pizzas in the world, one of the best offensive performances in Georgia's, season. And then you've got only one piece has crust because that's the defensive layer. That's the outside. And Georgia's defense realistically was only, playing there for about 7 minutes. And so you've got a great performance, a great pizza. It's a big win, but sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, dang, I could go for some more crust right now to compensate with this inner layer of the pizza. So that's going to be it for this week. Let us know what you think about that.
All right, now across football. Sorry, can't forget about the pizza. Yeah, anyways, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Florida after Billy Napier's been fired, relieved of his duties down in Gainesville. But, yeah, I mean, that, a little bit on Florida, Georgia, we'll get on, or Georgia, Florida, can't say the other way. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Florida coming in, they won't have their head coach. Who knows what their mentality is going to be, not just for that Georgia game, but for the rest of the season. It'll be very interesting to see. Maybe they rally, win some games, make a bowl or something. I don't know. I don't really know if that's really what they're too worried about, but we'll see what happens. Miami, big loss to Louisville on, what was that, Friday night?
Yep.
Yeah. Beck threw 4 picks, maybe might be in midseason form. But, yeah, that's a big win for Louisville. I mean, the ACC is completely wide open now. There's a couple teams undefeated. Virginia's undefeated. Georgia Tech, obviously undefeated. We'll get into that in a second. But, yeah, I mean, Miami, it just felt like they were going to lose the game eventually, though, right? I don't really know if 12-0. I don't know how many teams are going to end up undefeated as it is, but we'll have to see. And then also, you can talk about this a little bit because you were there, but James Franklin at game day, that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see him saying, when I was at Penn State, I thought I was going to win a national championship there, but now I'm going to go and win a championship somewhere else. So for some reason, that just gave me this gut feeling that I honestly think he might be the guy for the Florida job.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's crazy. He's a little bit more of a, northern personality, yeah. I feel like. So I don't know if he fits the SEC as well, but I think that Florida as a whole, once again, you can't run from something. You have to run to something. And I feel like, granted, he's struggled to win big games against big opponents, but I think that if Lane is not the guy, he's one of the top options for that team. So, I mean, it's just interesting to see. He'll be head coach somewhere next year, and maybe not even head coach. He might take a position coordinator, coach, but he's definitely not done by any means. And, while he's at it, he's making some money. So
yeah, right.
He's getting paid.
Yeah, but in terms of Florida, you got to give them something to get excited about, too. I mean, Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy, kind of maybe a long shot head coach hire in the first place. Maybe just, they were thinking, see what happens. But if you throw James Franklin in there, just a big name at Florida, that'll give their fans something to really rally around. Hopefully they don't succeed in their hire as a Georgia fan. But it would be good to maybe see Florida, competitive again and just, again, they're a blue blood program, and it's always good to see those, old school teams, historic teams that are, competing at the highest level and competing at the level that they're looking for. So maybe James Franklin to Florida is something we can look at a little bit more as the off-season comes up in the next few months. But
yeah, and I think this just once again leading into this bye week and then Georgia playing Florida here in Jacksonville in 2 weeks, it's another thing where for some reason teams seem to perform a little bit better when they're playing after a coach is fired and they're playing for an interim guy. I don't know if it's, this interim guy is someone that they all respect and so they want to play harder for him, but for some reason teams I feel like traditionally have played better in these circumstances. So I think it'll be a really interesting game to see. Obviously Florida is very talented, has the pieces to be a good program, and it'll be very, like I said, interesting to follow what they're able to do.
They have nothing to lose. I mean, legitimately they're just playing spoiler for the next few months. They have nothing to lose. But yeah, also Kentucky barely lost to Texas. That was a trap game. I was one of my picks last week was Kentucky. I think it was 12.5. But yeah, I mean Texas, they're barely getting by there. That's one of those games. If you're Texas, you're in win mode every single week. You've given up all your straws. You got to win every single week if you want to have any chance at making the playoff. And I think there may be a path for them to make the SEC championship. It'd take a lot, but if they win out, there's maybe a shot if they get the tiebreaker over Georgia. But yeah, I mean Texas is alive, and Stoops. I mean he might be another coach that could be. This offseason has a chance to be really, really crazy with a lot of coaches moving around. I mean, maybe even Shane Beamer. I don't know. They're not really doing much. I mean, it takes a lot to get a coach fired, I think. But at the same time, it seems like it's not. Penn State gone, all that stuff. But it's got a chance to be a very interesting offseason with a lot of big names shuffling around. So.
Yeah, and that game really reminded me of Georgia's game in Kentucky last week. It's the exact same, so few points are scored the entire game. It's so ugly. But then they came away and found a way to win. Kentucky decides to go for it on was it 4th and goal or 4th and 1?
4th and goal from like the half-yard line.
4th and goal from the half-yard line gets stuffed instead of kicking the field goal, which I honestly agree with that play. I've seen people say otherwise, but when you're playing a team like Texas, you got to go for the kill shot. But it's just that place is hard to play in, and
it's tough.
Stoops has
extremely hard.
A very good defensive coaching history, and so especially for a guy like Arch who's maybe struggled a little bit more this season, especially against tougher defenses, it's really interesting to see what Stoops continues to do. He sort of just is like a bee or like a fly in your ear. He won't go away. He finds a way to sort of get it close enough and just annoy you to where you want to swat him, but you still get rid of him. And it's just it'll be interesting to see. That's a tough job to deal with football. Kentucky's just not a great football state in general. Obviously, they're a basketball school. So, I think Stoops – I hope he stays. I like him as a coach.
I think he'll stay.
But that'll be interesting to follow. And with that – we've got another one that might result in a coaching change. Auburn loses to Missouri in overtime at home in another night game. I just thought that Auburn was due for a win. They should have won the game. But again, their hearts got stripped away. They had the lead pretty late. And I was texting one of my buddies, and he said, like, this is it, finally, we're about to win this one. And then he said, oh, never mind, typical Auburn. And that's – is that 4 SEC losses now, or is it 5?
It's 4. It's 0-4 in the SEC.
So 0-4 in the SEC.
And that's multiple years in a row they've done that, I'm pretty sure. So that's not what they're looking for. You
see Cam Coleman walking off the field in a video, and he just looks pretty much fed up with it. And I think this is something where I would heavily consider moving on. If I was a fan of this team. You just can't do that. You can't go 0-4 in SEC play as another historic program like Auburn and expect to find success there or support as a coach.
Well, when you have a coach that is calling the offensive plays and you're scoring 10, 12, 14, whatever points a game, there's something wrong there. I mean, maybe switch play callers. I know that your head coach is probably not going to be very obvious to give that up. But you got to switch something up. I mean, you're just not getting it done offensively. Your defense, Auburn's defense is legit. It's good. I mean, they're holding teams to 20 points, max around that area. That's enough in my eyes to keep you in any kind of ball game. If your offense can just score 3 touchdowns, you can win the game. So, as an offensive-minded head coach, that's something they might need to take a look at. Also, Vanderbilt with the big win over LSU. We were talking about it before the podcast. I think they're legit, and he agrees. I mean, they're a good football team. They got a good quarterback, good head coach, and like I kind of talked about a little bit with Indiana, it's like if you just get with the transfer portal the way it is nowadays, if you just get a good head coach and you can get a good quarterback in the transfer portal, you can win as many games as you want. So that's a big win for them.
Yeah, we were talking about this is sort of a brand that just makes sense. It doesn't make sense why it hasn't been successful. And I feel like you're in Nashville. It's a great, atmosphere to be in as a college student. obviously Vanderbilt is known for being a great school academically, so that's been sort of the stereotype is like you've got to be a great student and great athlete to be able to come here. But it's just been they've really turned things around. Top 10 for the first time since 1942 is the statistic, and I think that's just insane to think about. Is literally they have not been in the top 10 since World War II was going on.
It's crazy.
So, like he said, they've got a lot of things rolling for them. They're legit, and they'll continue to be tested. They've got, I think, Missouri this week.
Yep.
And it's another one.
I think game day's going to Nashville.
They should.
I'm pretty sure,
That's a team that's been fun to cover, or I guess fun to watch from an outside lens. And it's honestly, I think when Vanderbilt football is good at football, it's exciting for the sport. Again, going back to the entire SEC is just so deep. We were looking at the standings for the ACC before this, and it's pretty much Tech, Virginia, I guess Georgia Tech, Virginia, and Miami are teams that are competing for the ACC championship. When you look at the SEC, and it's just about 12 teams, are at the beginning of the season to now look like they could be competing for an SEC title.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, because I remember last year, it's like Georgia, I thought they were dead for the SEC championship, and then a couple teams lose, and next thing you know, they're going to Atlanta. I mean, like I said, Texas, they're alive. Vandy's very alive. I mean, you got a lot of teams that are sitting there with either 0 or 1 SEC loss saying there's no reason we can't end up in Atlanta with a shot at an automatic college football playoff bid.
Yep.
And Vandy is one of those teams. If they went out, you never know.
Yep. A&M wins.
Yeah, A&M.
And, again, it's just like it's just insane to see how – and – we were talking before also, I don't think it's terrible the spot Georgia's in at all. It honestly might be a great spot. Georgia's third in the SEC behind Bama and A&M, who are both very likely could go undefeated. And I think that's sort of the sweet spot you want to be in. If you're in a team, you don't have to – obviously you don't get to compete for this SEC title, but then you don't have to play that extra game, get extra beat up. You get to sit out, be the 5, 6 seed, and – if you're going into this game, if you're going into the end of the season as Georgia, say you went out, you go 11-1, don't have to play that SEC title. That's sort of the sweet spot you want to be in. I feel like heading into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, but when you were talking about that, it immediately came to my mind, and I've told a lot of people this, and they're like, "Yeah, that's kind of a decent idea or a decent point." But last year, Georgia barely makes the SEC championship. Probably shouldn't have made it, but they did. I think it's because A&M lost whatever last year, or no. Yeah, but anyways, Carson Beck gets hurt in the SEC championship. Say Georgia doesn't make that game and he's healthy. Do they go run the table in the college football playoff with a quarterback that has seen the whole season and didn't get thrown into a spot start because they were hurt? I mean, it's one of those things. What if Georgia goes to the SEC championship and, knock on wood, Gunnar Stockton gets hurt and you got Puglisi in the playoff like we saw last year? It's just one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's cool to go to Atlanta and like win the SEC championship or try to and all that stuff. That's cool. But that's another game against a top SEC team where you're just going to be butting heads for 60 minutes and guys are going to get banged up. They're going to get hurt. And you may lose those, lose players, key players late in the season that you don't need to be losing. So it's like, yes, Georgia obviously wants to make it to Atlanta and win. But at the same time, it'd be nice to get a little extra rest and also maybe get to host a college football playoff game in Athens, which would be really cool.
Yep.
So, yeah, it'll be
that's
interesting
one of
to
the
see.
top things you can ask for as a fan is either, from a journalistic perspective, again, I want Georgia to be in that spot where it's either an away playoff game or a home playoff game and just get to experience that atmosphere, whether it's in Athens or whether Georgia goes on the road to Oregon or something like that. That would be one of the most just electric, I feel like, weekends as a whole within the sport. But with that, we're pretty much done on things around college football.
Yeah, one last thing. We got to mention them, unfortunately, but Georgia Tech still undefeated.
Yep.
7-0. It's somehow they're finding ways to win games. I mean, it didn't look pretty. I mean, they had very little offense early on, but they won. And that's all they got to do. I mean, they gotten a lot of respect from the national poll. They're now number 7 in the AP poll. They jumped up 5 spots from last week. So, yeah, I mean, Tech, again, the rest of their schedule is pretty much a breeze, except maybe Pitt might be their toughest game, other than Georgia, obviously, but conference games. So, yeah, I mean, there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to be going to Charlotte for the ACC championship game, and it may not even be against Miami, which, again, favors them because it might be against respective Virginia. They're undefeated, good for them. They beat Florida State. It's a big win for them. But I think if you're a Tech fan, you'd probably rather play Virginia than Miami all day long.
Absolutely.
So if all stays the way it is, it's going to be them and Virginia in the ACC championship, which is pretty surprising. But, I mean, look, Tech's playing well. You got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, yeah, their schedule's weak, but that's the schedule they were given, and they're doing the most that they can with it. And obviously, the AP writers and national media, they understand and they respect it, and they think they're one of the top 10 teams in the nation. So there's a chance that Tech's making their first playoff ever and their first national championship run in a very, very long time. So
yeah, and all things considered, Georgia Tech will probably be undefeated when they
which is
going to
set up an insane. That's going to be one of the biggest games. I mean, we'll touch on this way down the road, but that's going to be one of the biggest games of their program history. If both teams, well, Georgia has one loss, but if they're 11-0 and Georgia has one loss, and it's like a 5-4 matchup, or who knows what it'll be, it's going to be unreal. And I mean,
Atlanta might explode.
Yeah, if they win, but
yeah. Well, I think either way,
either way, yes, that is true. Yeah, that's true.
And so with that, we'll go into locks. Last week, finally, shot 50% again, went 1-1. Penn
Auburn
State
was
plus
unfortunate.
2.5. Lost by 1 point. Close there. I think I might have said money line, but they covered the spread. That's what matters. And then Auburn, I had plus 1.5. They lost in overtime, so hate to see that. But with that being said, this week, I've got Bama minus 13.5 over South Carolina. I just continue to think this Bama team is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. And South Carolina is coming off of a tough loss against Oklahoma, and a team that, Mateer's still playing slightly injured, and they only are able to put up 6 points. So I think that Bama covers the spread there. And then I've also got, I know we were just, talking up Tech and everything, but Syracuse plus 17.5. I think that's a very, very wide spread. I think they're going to cover this. And, again, I think Fran Brown is a great coach, and Tech might sort of underestimate this game, especially with Syracuse losing their starting quarterback earlier on in the season. So
is that a noon kick? Do you know? I'm sure it is.
I'm not sure, but probably.
Yeah.
So those are my two. I've got Bama 13.5 over South Carolina, and Syracuse plus 17.5 against Tech.
Yeah, I always, when I look at lines and see that, I think that when there's a big spread at a noon kick, that's something to look at. But anyways, 2-0 last week. Tech plus 1.5 and Kentucky 12.5. Both those teams on the road, Kentucky was at home, but Tech on the road. Big win for them, and Kentucky kept it close like I figured they would. But this week, I think Ole Miss plus 4.5 over Oklahoma is good. I think Ole Miss is one of the best teams in the country still, even after that Georgia loss for them. And yeah, I mean, Oklahoma, their offense just hasn't looked that great, I want to say, all year. I mean, Mateer's looked pretty good, but they didn't put up that many points against Auburn. I know they have a good defense. They didn't really put up that many points against Michigan back in September, whatever that was. I mean, they look good against South Carolina, but they're one of the lower teams in the SEC. And I think Ole Miss is at the very least going to keep this game very, very close. It is on the road. It's at Oklahoma, but it's a noon kick, probably 11 a.m. Central Time kick. But, yeah, I think, Ole Miss might win this one outright, but I think 4.5 is a safe line. That's going to be one of the better games next weekend along with the Vandy game. But also, I like LSU plus 2.5 over who is it? It's A&M, right. Sorry, didn't write down. LSU plus 2.5 over A&M. Brian Kelly, look, it's time for him to get one of those big wins, right? It just seems like LSU's just kind of floating. They're just floating. They're good, then they're back down. It's time they get a big win at home. A&M coming in undefeated. They just snuck by Arkansas last week on the road in a less hostile environment than Death Valley. So, with that being said, I think LSU plus 2.5 is a good line over A&M, and I honestly think they get the job done. and they keep their very, very, very slim playoff hopes alive at this point. But, yeah, I think Brian Kelly, he's got to get this one done because if they have 3 losses before Halloween, that's just not where they need to be as a program. And, again, maybe a couple years down the road, he may be looking for a job himself if he goes down to LSU as from Notre Dame and just can't find any success for the most part. So, be interesting to see what happens with that one.
Yeah, that about wraps it up. We want to remind y'all one more time. I guess I haven't even brought it up this episode, but we're doing a giveaway with Onward Reserve when we hit 500 subscribers. We'll be giving away 3 Onward Reserve polos, so make sure to subscribe, drop a like, comment your Instagram handle in order to be entered. We really appreciate TJ and Onward for doing this once again. We're going to be back here next week with the bye. We might have a special guest. We will see.
Yep.
But another escaped win, another wild weekend of college football.
And one last thing, is so much needed bye. Just taking a lot of stressful games. It's much needed bye for the fans and for the team. But yeah, just rest up, get ready to travel down to St. Simons or Jacksonville, wherever you're staying, and get ready for that Georgia-Florida game in a couple weeks. So see y'all next week.
Yep, see y'all. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.